Today I want to talk about practicing witchcraft while you are chronically, physically, or mentally ill and dealing with chronic pain. I'm going to give you my opinions as someone who deals with chronic illnesses, mental illness, and daily chronic pain. Obviously, I can only give you my perspective based on my personal experiences, but I think most people with chronic illness will be able to relate to this even if your specific illness is something different than mine. This will be a bit more of a personal video, but I also have some tips of things you can do if you suffer from chronic illness to aid in your witchcraft practice. I've kind of got a lot of health issues, unfortunately. I've dealt with anxiety and depression most of my life, and that got worse when I started becoming a teenager. I'm also autistic, and this really affects how I see and experience the world. I've experienced migraines most of my life as well, and have some other things as well, like POTS, arthritis, fibromyalgia, and a few other things. Then I have a couple more serious chronic illnesses that I've had since I was, I think, maybe 14. And they're more rare, especially one of them. And most people I've talked to haven't heard of it, even doctors I've seen. That really affects my eyesight, my memory, gives me brain fog, fatigue, horrible headaches and migraines, and other stuff kind of along those lines. I have some days that are better than others, but especially on the bad days, I often don't feel like doing anything witchy. When I'm stuck in bed feeling miserable, sometimes I try to meditate to help me relax and get my mind off the pain, but sometimes I can't even do that, and that's okay. It's gotten particularly bad a few times, like my senior year of high school in 2010, again in 2018, and again in 2020. I had to take a break from YouTube in 2018, and again at the end of 2019 through 2020, because I just couldn't handle much of anything during that time. Now though, even though I'm still dealing with everything, and there's some days that are better and some that are worse, but I'm really trying to be more consistent on YouTube and upload more frequently. So I'm just kind of fitting my filming schedule around the days that I feel a little bit better. I think most people don't really understand what it's really like to be chronically ill and live with chronic pain every day. Some people try to sympathize, but unless you've really actually been in that situation, it's really not something you can ever imagine or have any idea of what it's actually like. It's something that affects your everyday life, your practice, and how you go about doing everything, not just witchy stuff. It's especially hard having an invisible illness because people really don't understand those. Sometimes just because you don't look sick, people will think you're fine or that you're faking it when that couldn't be farther from the truth. It's not like cancer or something like that where everyone's heard of it, everyone kind of knows how bad it can be, and you can see the signs just by looking at someone. Like maybe hair falling out because of chemo or whatever. With invisible illnesses, there often aren't outward signs, hence the term invisible illness. And people just aren't educated on them and don't really know about them, so they just don't understand. I've heard some people say something along the lines of, just do a spell to fix it, when it really isn't that simple. Firstly, I don't think any spell of any kind is going to work without the mundane effort to help it. And although, of course, I do all the mundane things I can, when you have a serious chronic illness, a spell isn't going to suddenly cure it. If it was that easy, I would have been cured years ago. I can't even count the number of healing spells I have done over the years. All kinds of things. Candle spells, mojo bags, spell bottles, tons of stuff. and none of it has cured me, obviously. I think expecting someone to be able to just do a spell to get rid of something super serious like this is just naive thinking. And honestly, I think it's quite rude to say something like that to someone. Just fix it. Just do a spell, fix it. So I think it's completely possible to be a witch and practice magic when you are chronically ill and or on medication. Another thing I've heard people say is that you can't practice if you are sick or on medications. I don't think that's true at all. You can't control illnesses, especially serious chronic ones. And while you may have to practice a bit different than other people, there's no reason you can't practice if you want to. Sometimes you have to take needed medications, and while some might affect your ability to focus or do energy work for long periods of time, you can learn to work around this and still do magic. Sometimes it takes all your strength and energy just to get through the day, and you live like that, day by day. You're the only person who knows what you can and can't handle. Sometimes you don't have the energy for practicing witchcraft, and that's perfectly okay. I've had times where I've had to take breaks from practicing, and I've only done occasional things like meditating or talking to my deities. Even though I struggle with chronic illnesses, I'm not going to let them stop me from doing what I love and practicing my spiritual beliefs. If you deal with chronic illness as well and want to practice, I don't think you should let it stop you either. Your witchcraft is your witchcraft and is valid no matter how you practice. Your spiritual path is your own, and no one has the right to tell you that you're doing it wrong or you aren't working hard enough. Don't compare yourself to others and your practice to how they practice theirs. No one knows your exact circumstances except you, and no one can tell you that you aren't good enough as a witch. Don't let anyone, including yourself, make you feel bad or guilty for not celebrating the holidays or observing the moon phases or whatever else. Don't beat yourself up. Just do what you can do when you can do it and be satisfied that you're doing your best. Now I'm going to talk about a few things that you can do even while struggling with illnesses and not feeling well. One of the simplest things to do is self-care. For witches especially, self-care can be a sacred act. It's making sure you're looking after yourself and the temple that is your body. It can help you to feel better both physically and mentally. There are different ways to practice self-care, including taking a ritual bath or shower, doing some divination like a tarot spread, spending time in and communing with nature, grounding, or even adding your intention into something like a cup of tea. Like I mentioned earlier, meditation can be a good thing to try when you aren't feeling your best because it doesn't take a ton of energy like some other things do. I rarely do big rituals anymore because they just take up too much energy that I honestly just don't have to expend on something like that. For the Sabbats, I usually do something like light a candle and talk to my deities. And for the moon phases, I honestly haven't really done anything for them in quite a while. I also haven't done many spells in a while either. I really like to try to solve problems with mundane efforts first, and if that doesn't work by itself, then I'll do a spell to help it along. The spells I do now, though, are more simple and don't take a super long time. I've always liked candle spells, and so now I tend to use smaller candles like tea lights or even birthday candles for my spells, so I don't have to focus on it for hours at a time. Around the beginning of most months, I like to set my intentions for that month. I will sometimes light a candle while I write them down. This is another thing that doesn't expend as much energy, so I don't feel as drained afterwards. Then at the end of the month, I will see how well I did at bringing those intentions into reality. This is a great thing to do when you have chronic illnesses and just don't really feel like doing anything huge. Another thing I really enjoy doing as a form of devotion to the god and goddess is gardening. I garden all organically and try to work with nature as opposed to against it. I plant flowers to bring in pollinators and use companion planting to repel pests rather than using things like insecticides. I want to create an area with native flowers and plants as well. For me, working outside in nature is something I like to do to dedicate that time to my deities. Along these lines, another thing you can do is go out walking in nature. Like for me, I go to the local greenbelt and pick up trash and litter that people have left. Just being in nature really helps me get my mind off things and helps with my anxiety and depression. It's really great for mental health in general. You can also work on visualization and putting your intent into something you want to manifest. I really enjoy visualizing my dream life and what I would want my future home and life to look like. I try to visualize all the details and really get a good visual and see it clearly in my mind. This is something I can do even when I'm not feeling that well and I'm laying in bed. If you have a little bit more energy, you can work with this and work on creating some type of dream board to go along with it. Doing one of those like collages with pictures cut out from magazines and stuff, that's fun. Another thing you can do is to study things you're interested in. Read books, do research online, watch YouTube videos, whatever, and just work on learning about whatever it is you're interested in. I'm sure there are other ideas that I haven't mentioned, but I don't want to make this video hours long, so I'm going to kind of stop here. I hope you learned something and found this video helpful. I'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe, leave a comment, and like this video. If you have any ideas of other things you can do to practice witchcraft while dealing with chronic illnesses, leave them down below in the comments. I would love to hear about them, and I'm sure other people would appreciate reading them as well. You can also hit the bell icon if you want to be notified every time I upload a new video. I'm really trying to work on growing my channel and posting more consistently. Blessings. Bye. See you next time.